Come on, Rambo. Tonight we nail that little zombie takeout.
What's up? Welcome to episode 205 of Zombie
Zombie takeout.
the B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got some listeners submitted. This is from John Phillips. It's been a while since we've heard from him.
Good to hear from you, sir.
He asked us this over Twitter. He said, wasn't Albert Finney in Skyfall? Now, I haven't seen Skyfall, have you?
I shamefully have not seen it. I'm way behind on my Bond.
However, there is this thing called IMDb, which I checked just before we started recording after I saw the question. And yes,
Really?
he was in Skyfall.
Is that on this thing where the computers are all connected together and the NSA hears our every word?
Yeah.
Ah.
Actually, to be honest, I saw the first few minutes of Casino Royale, the recent one, and kind of lost interest in Craig as Bond.
I think, you know why I strayed from Bond? I was so psyched to get Pierce Brosnan as Bond until Pierce Brosnan became Bond.
He wasn't bad. He wasn't Connery by any means. He wasn't even more, but he wasn't bad.
He had a huge expectation set up for him.
True.
And it was just impossible for him to live up to.
Right, yeah. See, I didn't go into it expecting him to be the perfect Bond. I went into it expecting Remington Steele as Bond, and I got that.
I don't know. I mean, I've always liked his work and just was really psyched for him as Bond, and then it was kind of it was kind of, I guess, too late for him to be it. I really don't understand what happened with all that.
He was a bit older
Yeah.
than the role really allowed for.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to this week's movie, which is, as requested by Jen Miller, from 1987, Mannequin. And of course that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by the 80s. What the fuck were we thinking?
And also brought to you by Hopeless Romantics and Magical Women, instilling unrealistic expectations in the human race since when did they start writing things?
Pretty much ancient Greece.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I think the women weren't the magical thing to the Greeks, but that's
true.
another story. Anyway, we start with this, the magical woman in question here is a mannequin, although she originally came from ancient Egypt, which is probably when they really started writing this shit down,
Yeah,
actually.
fair. That's a good point, yeah.
Only it was just weird side profile people on walls I don't fucking know, with cats' heads and,
Technically written, in a sense.
Yes, you're right. She was forced to marry somebody she didn't want to marry, so she wanted to go out and see the world. So just like in Battlestar Galactica, she disappears.
Nice.
And I know. Anyway, I know I'm behind in the joke. But anyway, she disappears and travels through time, seeing everything because her gods really loved her or something, and she was magical. And her trip to the 1980s, that crazy planet of the 1980s, she winds up as a mannequin in a department store. And that brings us to the person who created her, the hopeless romantic dreamer who's so idealistic and isn't going to sell out man, but, tries to. Just doesn't really have the focus to sell out. Yes. He winds up bumbling into a job at the department store to dress the mannequin, and it turns out, the mannequin can come to life. And you think they're kind of going to do a Pygmalion sort of thing here, but they decide that doesn't really hold enough interest for an entire movie, so it's really only Pygmalion for a few scenes, and then it's back to her wanting to see the world and do things and explore. So they do pretty much what any red-blooded male would do when he has a creation of his own come to life that looks like Kim Cattrall back in 1987. They, of course, play dress-up.
Mm.
He becomes, well, with her help, he becomes the greatest window dresser in all the land, that everyone comes from far and wide to their kingdom of department stores to see their window, save the department store.
Gotta give the movie a little credit for glorifying that profession. No one else really has.
Yeah, and we'll get into it in a bit, but I do respect them.
Mhm.
But anyway, um, the results with a a car chase, a Keystone Cops chase, and a struggle for life and death and hilarity. Actually, Starship ensues.
Now, just gonna start off with a bit of trivia that will really frame things. The film was based on the marketing principles of noted Hollywood market researcher Joseph Farrell, who served as an executive producer. The film was specifically designed to appeal to a target demographic.
Oh, hell yes.
McCarthy, though not a star, was cast after tests of his films showed that he strongly appealed to girls, the target audience. There was nothing creative about the inception of this movie. There was nothing artistic. It was literally, to quote Zappa, strictly from commercial.
Well, right. I mean, it is an adolescent girl's fantasy. It's just, they play dress up.
Yeah, yeah.
They have, some romance. And that's, the extent of it.
Yeah, it is completely paint by numbers. It follows the playbook of how to make a hit movie and still fails. Well, actually, it didn't fail. It did pretty well in the box office, but
I was gonna say, did this do well in the box office? That is one thing I did not look up.
the film was successful at the box office, grossing over 42 million on a $6 million budget. It
Not bad.
debuted at number one, surpassing Over the Top. Again, what the fuck were we thinking?
Oh my God. So we went from 1990, the same year as Men at Work and Miller's Crossing,
Yeah,
to 87 that had Over the Top.
and Mannequin.
And 1990 also had, you know why Miller's Crossing wasn't a huge ass hit either, gangster movie, because it was made the same year that Goodfellas was out.
Ah, okay. And yeah, that kind of dwarfed everything.
Of course. But anyway, back to our mannequin here.
Specifically, the very beginning of the film, the whole, job montage. And
Gotta have a montage.
I'm not gonna, do my usual complaint about montages. I'll spare you that. But it felt kind of weirdly trauma.
This whole movie was a montage
Oh,
almost.
yes, and it was cut very quickly. But the acting in those opening scenes was very B grade, and it just
Oh yeah.
had a trauma feel, but without the transgressive jokes. I kept waiting for those.
You know, it had, I don't know if you've seen these. They were very similar to the ads for Huntington Learning Center,
I haven't seen them,
where it's the parents arguing, I'm going to fail.
but I get the idea. It's basically every ad that was made by the owner of the place that it's selling.
You haven't seen those? Face it, Mom, I'm not going to college.
Oh yeah, okay, that yeah, that I remember.
That was this.
Yeah, it was.
Face it, girlfriend's name, I can't remember right now, who I thought was Estelle Getty at first. Like, wait a
Ah,
minute, what? What was under that makeup?
wow.
Roxy. Face it, Roxy, I'm not going to find a job.
I thought she was Fran Drescher for about half the movie.
Uh, and then I saw Estelle Getty in this, and I always right in the world again.
Ha. Estelle Getty was kind of for me in this one.
Yeah,
The bright spot for me, well, there were two bright spots, and I think
same here.
you'll disagree with one, given something you said before we recorded.
Okay.
James Spader, I enjoyed his performance.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, you made a crack about him before we were recording.
Well, I said I came up with that title when I saw him in the credits, even.
Oh, okay.
What the other title I had was The Drek List, and it was just a play on words.
Hmm.
When I saw him, it was kind of like, I can't believe I'm fucking watching this movie.
Yeah, yeah. James Spader was the one who inspired it, so I had a feeling you weren't a fan.
Oh no, in fact, I think it's the same character from The Blacklist.
Ah, I haven't seen the Blacklist.
I've seen a number of episodes to like, wait a minute, he's playing the same motherfucker, only he's like 20 years younger.
Kind of
This is
always plays
weird.
the same guy, but I enjoy the
Ah,
character. And the other one, again, always plays the same guy, but I enjoy the character.
Of course.
W. Bailey.
Yes. I was like, Captain Harris, no fucking way.
See, to me, he's always going to be Rizzo from MASH.
That's true. When I saw him, I really did have some hope. I was like, whoa, maybe I might enjoy this.
See, that's when it got better for me when I saw those two.
Of course.
And I gotta admit, the line where McCarthy calls Bailey's character a bigoted jerk for making a homophobic comment about Hollywood, very progressive for '87,
Yeah.
especially given what they did in Men at Work.
Wow. I mean, Men at Work was a movie that was just, it wasn't there to pretty anything up.
True, true. And this was explicitly for that purpose.
Yeah.
And that's when I clicked into what made it enjoyable. And I will admit, I enjoyed this movie. It is so bad that it surpasses so bad it's good and becomes a parody of itself.
I don't know.
It kind of, to me, felt like a self-aware parody with just really subtle punchlines. Like, nobody can write this bad without trying to, and without trying to be funny. And that's kind of how I looked at it.
It was really hard to hold the interest. I was more interested in trying to find out if Christopher Marr was Bill Maher's brother while the film was still going, rather than the actual film. I confused him first with the other guy that owned the department store, who kind of does look like Bill Maher. So like, that's got to be his fucking brother or something. And then I realized that it was the terrible Italian accented guy.
hmm and on to Hollywood, Michelle Teller's character.
Oh God.
I'm inclined to say he was offensive, but he kind of wasn't because I mean he was very stereotypically flamboyant gay character, but he was a hero. They never
Yeah.
showed him in a negative light,
No, they did.
and yes, he was over the top
I was
and
gonna say they
excessive.
never showed him in a negative light, with the exception of every line he has in the movie.
He was excessive. I was talking to Jen about the movie before we started recording, and she said you'd never get away with this character today. I beg,
Really?
I beg to differ.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen True Blood, Lafayette is this character just R-rated and angry.
I think it's a prototypical gay character. Still,
Yeah, very stereotypical.
it's kind of done to
A
death.
lot.
Even by then, it was almost a
Yeah.
stereo. I mean, just a trope.
At that point, yes, but her point was you couldn't get away with it today, as we've often pointed out with things in movies. I think you could, and at least HBO has for years.
Isn't the gay best friend a rom-com staple?
Yeah, true. Actually, and think about Will and Grace.
Right. Well,
Jack,
right.
whatever. Sean Hayes' character.
Yeah.
So
He
yeah, you can get away with this.
he was probably the least enjoyable part of this movie, Musack Taylor.
I had fun with the character. You know, it was cliche, but it was amusing to me.
I mean, it was just so done.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably the most paint by numbers the entire film had gotten, I thought.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Well, aside from Estelle Getty, who's just the good, kindly grandmother.
And my, of course, closest association with her is Golden Girls,
Of course.
and she was so great on that show. She was the only good thing about that show, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah, she did have the zingers, yeah.
And so this was kind of disappointing because I was expecting more from her.
They didn't give her much.
Yeah, true.
I mean, what'd she have, 3 scenes this whole movie? And it was mostly to say, you're in trouble, James Spader. And you got the job, Andrew McCarthy.
Now, the high point of the movie for me, there was a short scene with Spader and Bailey. That was awesome. Where he's basically just giving him the orders to find some dirt on McCarthy's character.
Yeah, I do like the two together and wish they had gone further
Yeah.
with them.
And I did like the line about Michelangelo and David. Because that's not a widely known thing that Michelangelo was gay.
Oh,
And just mentioning that David was actually his boyfriend, that was a nice touch, I thought.
yeah, never really thought much of it. I thought it was kind of obvious he was.
I got a kick out of it. And there was one stunt that I have to call out because I don't think I've ever seen it before in a movie.
It's got to be the car, right?
Bailey and Spader's characters are chasing our leads who are on a motorcycle. They're in a car, The bad guys are in a car, the good guys are on a motorcycle. They're going down an alley, motorcycle jumps,
And by
clears
the
it.
way, best stunt double ever in a chase scene.
Yes. Car attempts the same jump, gets caught between two buildings, and is just hanging there in midair between these two buildings.
I did like that, yeah.
I've never seen that before, so I did get a kick out of that. Now, I went through the entire movie making a particular assumption.
What?
And they kind of play into this throughout the movie. He wonders if he's crazy when he sees this mannequin coming alive. I went through it assuming that he was, that he'd had a psychotic break, and even that little intro scene with her in ancient Egypt was just his imagination.
You were giving this way too much credit.
Apparently I was, because that made it better for me. I enjoyed
Holy
it from that
shit.
perspective.
No, it was obvious you were going to get the happy ending from the beginning. Well,
I was hopeful.
everybody was going to be happy in the
Oh,
movie,
yes, that's
and
a given.
when the movie ended, maybe not necessarily a happy ending.
But I was hopeful that they wouldn't go so far as to have other characters directly see her. I was hoping that they would keep that up. In the movie, there's this trope where if anybody else is watching, she turns back into a mannequin.
Which was a serious 80s thing of, something weird was going on with a person that only that one person can see, so they're stuck dealing with it all on their own. I don't know how many shows we could go on about, like, oh man, it was like this show where Angeline was a ghost or something, but only one dude can see him. And then there was a show where like Eric Idle was a ghost and only one person could see him.
I was hoping that at least they wouldn't give that up at the end, but they did. And they kind of spoiled my whole he's psychotic theory. And it's like one or two lines that I can't get around.
It would have greatly improved this movie, totally.
Hmm.
But you knew from the beginning, from the cartoon intro, with her exploring time and stuff, and deciding that the 1980s department store was the place to live.
Now, you mentioned that there were other shows that had similar devices. There are actually other movies that have had very similar
Oh,
plots.
oh, I'm sure of it.
Apparently, it's some have observed that it's similar to the plot of the 1948 film One Touch of Venus. Journey into the Unknown, a British TV series aired in 1968, featured a story about a young man called Albert, played by Dennis Waterman, who sees in the display window of a department store an attractive dummy. It comes to life and smiles at him. He falls in love and gets a job at the store so he could be with her and dress her. So yeah, there were a couple of influences, even though Michael Gottlieb, the director, claims that he got the idea while walking down Fifth Avenue and thought he saw a mannequin move in a window.
And yes, mannequins do move in windows. I'm quite sure they moved in windows before this movie was made.
I think they had the whole living mannequin thing going
Uh,
before this.
yes. The whole thing about like, wow, that is such a creative window. Creative windows to attract customers, that will never work.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sitting here like, how retarded is this fucking movie?
That's the beauty of it to me, is that it's that bad, that
Like,
it exceeds just so bad it's good, and it goes to parody for me. Now, there is one thing that could have made it better, at least slightly.
cut all the montages out,
Well, like pretty much the entire movie, which I
especially
think
the
that's what
dress
you're
up
going for.
montage.
Well, yeah, that and the music montage. The musical montage was the part that hurt me.
Oh, terrible, terrible.
Now, originally, the lead part was written to be an older, lonely storekeeper with Dudley Moore in mind for the role.
That would have been better. Not nothing against Andrew McCarthy,
Oh,
but
no.
I mean,
Andrew McCarthy, I've seen him in quite a few movies. He's competent, but really nondescript.
right. And that's really one of the hugest problems of this movie is that the two leads were just so interchangeable. You really could have had any name in there. You
Yeah.
could have put John Cusack. You could have put a Brat Packer in there. I mean, fuck, you could have put Anthony Michael Hall in there. In fact,
Mhm.
it wasn't Weird Science pretty much almost the same thing,
Very similar, yeah.
except they really were unsure of themselves.
Yeah, they were more the stereotypical nerds, and
Right.
they actually created her
Yeah.
in this sense. Well, he kind of created her. He created the body.
Yeah.
in this. So yeah, I guess that works. I'm done with my notes.
Ah. uh, yeah, there really isn't much to add to this, honestly.
On to sequels and remakes.
On to sequels and remakes.
In 1991, a partial sequel called Mannequin 2, On the Move, was released and was directed by Stuart Rafel. The film was dubbed as one of the worst follow-ups ever made. It's a partial follow-up because Hollywood is the only returning character. It's another guy and another mannequin come to life.
The person with the least career.
Yeah. Now, this is the scary part. In 2010, Gladden Entertainment executives were said to be in the early development stages of the remake, but they're envisioning a plot of the man's having a crush on a laser display hologram as opposed to a mannequin.
Ah.
However, no further details were made public about its development. So they're doing a remake, but updating it to a hologram.
Wouldn't this have been more believable if the genders were reversed? That it was the woman was the window dresser and the dude is the mannequin?
It would have been more stereotypical rom-com. I don't know if necessarily more believable.
Well, just the fact that the dress up part.
Well, okay. Yeah. That part would have made more sense.
Maybe that's the thing I find most confounding about this.
But okay, so he falls for a laser display hologram. Remove the romantic angle, and isn't that Automan?
Hmm.
If you remember Automan from the 80s.
I think so.
Desi Arnaz Jr. and this guy in a holographic suit.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so they're borrowing from an old TV show, failed TV show, turning it into a rom-com. See, I get why the sequel was made. It blew away its budget.
Yeah.
Why are they remaking it?
Well, G.W. Bailey is still alive.
Yes, he is. He's actually quite a bit. I was actually going to hold on to this for what have I learned, but I'll say it now.
Okay.
He's actually quite a bit younger than I thought he was. He was in his 30s when he was on MASH. He was our age. He was like maybe slightly older than me when this movie was made.
Hmm.
He was like 42, 43 when this movie was made. So yeah, he's younger than I thought, and yes, still around. About 70 now.
And James Spader was entirely too young for this movie.
Yes, he'd actually make more sense in it now.
Right? He's not even 30 when they did this.
Hmm.
Like, he's supposed to be this big department store manager. And he's just, but mom. Well, you know, it would be funny if they just did take the original cast and remade it
Oh,
that way. Of
oh yeah.
course, Estelle Getty's not alive.
Right, right. That would be good. I'm thinking, Taylor Lautner or the guy who was just cast as Gambit. I can't think of his name.
But no, we keep the same cast. We got Kim Cattrall, like, 25 years older and stuff.
Could be interesting. Yeah.
People going to Andrew McCarthy, you made the mannequin like this age?
I just looked it up. Channing Tatum is who I was trying to think of.
Channing Tatum.
He's the one who would get the lead in the remake, I'm sure.
Well, yeah.
But I do like your idea of bringing in the same cast because they are all still around. Anyway, on to Brains.
On to Brains.
Now, like I said, I had fun with it. I had absolutely abysmal expectations, and this has worked for me in the past. So it certainly exceeded them, and also the twist of imagining that he's really psychotic was great up until the end. So I'm actually gonna go 3.
All right, we're not far off on this,
Okay.
really. I went in with well, not high, or low expectations, I should say.
Gonna say.
And was pleasantly surprised, yeah, with James Spader, G.W. Bailey, and the weird chase scenes that almost did not seem to really fit with the rest of the movie, especially the Keystone Cops thing at the end. Um, but it was really hard to keep the attention. But I'm going to.
All right, and what have we learned?
Misak Taylor really had to have blown the right people to have gotten anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. And I honestly think Kim Cattrall has too, because who convinced her she can act?
Well, she wasn't hired for her acting. Come on.
Well, yeah, she never was, but she still has a career, and she's never been able to act. And
You just
anyway,
kind of marvel in this at the shape she was in.
well, yeah, that's pretty much all you
Like,
did for
like
up until Sex in the City, really.
even if you like, you know, from the days of like Porky's or something where she looked like a normal person,
Ah,
in this she's just completely ripped.
yeah.
Insane.
Hmm. All right, so until next week when we'll be reviewing Office Space, it's kind of like the art movie and the blockbuster. It's the good movie, the bad movie, the good movie, the bad movie, which is going to be actually kind of fun for the next bad one. It's one of those spiffy movies.
Stick the carrot. Stick the carrot.
Until then, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. You also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review, up through 210, Blue Velvet. The request form, if you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form. We'll get to it eventually. And of course, you'll find the recommendations list. This I flirted briefly with it when Bailey and Spader had that scene together. It almost earned it for that, but then that ending had to go and ruin it.
And I was disappointed that Christopher Marr was not related to Bill Maher.
Of course, you can email us, zombietakeout@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTO1, or for the alphanumerically challenged, 414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you will always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.
Reality is very disappointing.
Okay, so we were talking a bit off the air, particularly about Estelle Getty, and, how
Golden
horrible her movie
Girls.
career was, etc. And you had an interesting realization. And I don't have a good outtake this week, so here we go.
Okay, and well, first, we acknowledged that there were some better players on the Golden Girls than we
Mhm.
gave credit for
Yeah.
because B. Arthur had the snark,
And Betty
Betty
White
White
is a massive
had
heavy hitter.
had the great dits,
Yeah.
and then Rue McClanahan, well,
Yeah, she was just kind of there. She was the reason for a lot of the jokes.
right, and really, isn't she the same character that Kim Cattrall played on Sex and the City,
Mhm.
which of course led to the theory that the women from Sex and the City are really the Golden Girls
Slightly
young.
younger. Yeah. Just want to leave you with that realization.
That visual. Picture the Golden Girls in the Sex and the City show.
And on that note, see you next week.
Sweet dreams, Internet.